In recent days, China has faced a string of natural disasters with Gansu's Yuzhong County among the hardest hit. Torrential rains triggered flash floods and massive mudslides devastating 4 townships. Entire villages were leveled farmland buried, and many residents reported missing. Official figures acknowledged 10 dead, 33 missing, and over 4,000 stranded, but long-standing patterns of disaster cover-ups suggest the true toll could be higher. Survivors describe a night of unrelenting rain-swollen rivers and walls of water sweeping away homes within minutes. Eyewitnesses recount vehicles crushed or twisted beyond recognition, bridges destroyed, and communication power and road links severed. Some families were entirely wiped out, with relatives saying there was nothing left, just bare ground where houses stood. The disaster has rattled Beijing, with top leaders Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang making formal statements and calling for rescue efforts. Yet even as Gansu reeled, sudden downpours struck Zhengzhou in Henan, flooding half the city within hours, paralyzing traffic and reviving fears of a repeat of the deadly July 2021 floods. Videos from residents show submerged underpasses, stranded cars, and city streets turned into rivers. Meanwhile, in Beijing's Huairu district, flash floods and mudslides left large areas in ruins, sweeping away campsites, vehicles, and homes. Many tourists and villagers remain unaccounted for. Families have turned to civilian rescue teams to search riverbeds and debris fields for loved ones. Witness accounts describe pitch-black nights with the roar of floodwaters collapsing walls and the sound of cars being smashed apart. Survivors speak of losing all crops and arable land, with a heavy stench of decay lingering in affected villages. Despite the ongoing crises, authorities are prioritizing security preparations for the September 3rd military parade. Across Beijing, including Tiananmen Square and Wangfujing roads, are under partial or full traffic control, and shops in major commercial areas have closed early. Officials are recruiting thousands of temporary security guards, many of them retirees, to patrol, monitor, and report suspicious activity. Estimates suggest hundreds of thousands of people across the capital are being mobilized for stability maintenance. Adding to the tense atmosphere, an unusual cloud formation resembling a dragon went viral online, prompting a swift response from authorities. The person who filmed it reported being contacted by officials and warned not to spread rumors. The explanation offered that it was a natural light and cloud effect was met with skepticism online. Today, Beijing's political core is under heavy restrictions, with cyclists and pedestrians along Chang'an Avenue subject to stops and searches. The combination of severe natural disasters, heightened censorship, and intense security measures ahead of a major political event has left the capital shrouded in a climate of fear and control. China's new social insurance rules push small businesses to the brink, driving restaurants to hire retirees and leaving youth jobless. Beijing's latest social insurance regulations, set to take effect on September 1st, are sending shockwaves through China's already fragile economy. The policy mandates that all companies, restaurants, and self-employed businesses must provide full social insurance coverage for their employees, including pensions, medical, unemployment, work injury, and maternity benefits. For many small and medium-sized enterprises, this change could not have come at a worse time. The economy is slowing, consumer spending is down, and business owners are struggling to keep their doors open.
My boss told me that my social insurance payments would be deducted from my salary. Originally, I earned 2,500 yuan a month, but after 1,800 yuan was taken out for social insurance, I was left with only 700 yuan. I work more than 22 days a month, which means I make only about 20 to 30 yuan a day. The reason I have to pay social insurance is that if you want to register as a trainee lawyer, you need to have a record of social insurance contributions. Without paying it, you can't become a trainee lawyer, and without being a trainee lawyer, you can't become a licensed lawyer. I spend 6 yuan every day just on transportation to work. If you add the social insurance deductions, it's like paying 12 yuan a day just to get to the office, and I still have to pay for my own meals. Every day, it feels like I'm paying to work. I'm preparing to resign. My salary is 5,500 yuan, but the boss said that starting September 1st, I'll have to pay social insurance, automatically deducting 1,500 yuan from my wages, leaving me with only 4,000 yuan. With just 4,000, I really can't keep working. I've decided to voluntarily quit at the end of August, go home to lie flat, and take things one step at a time.
Now, with the added weight of mandatory contributions, thousands of shops and restaurants face a stark choice: absorb the extra costs or shut down. In cities across the country, owners are calculating the numbers and realizing that the math simply does not work. Some, like a bun shop operator in Beijing, have already decided to close once their leases expire, unable to bear the monthly insurance costs for their staff. Online forums and business groups are filled with similar stories. Restaurant owners lamenting that they are finished, unsure how they will navigate the months ahead. The impact is being felt most acutely among the smallest economic players: tiny family-run shops, modest eateries, and sole proprietors who operate with razor-thin margins. Analysts note that for these operators, the new rule is not just a financial burden, but a tipping point that could wipe out entire segments of the service industry. In an attempt to stay afloat, many restaurants are turning to a controversial workaround, replacing younger employees with retirees. Since retirees already receive pensions and are not subject to social insurance contributions, hiring them can eliminate the additional costs. Across provinces such as Yuzhong, job ads are appearing for workers over the age of 50, offering modest wages and part-time shifts. Even multinational chains like McDonald's have joined in openly recruiting older staff. This shift is subtly but profoundly reshaping the labor market. Every retiree hired often means one fewer position for a younger worker. The result is an intensifying youth unemployment crisis, as fresh graduates and young job seekers find themselves pushed out of low to mid-skill roles that once served as stepping stones into the workforce. Without steady employment, many face mounting financial strain. Mortgages, family obligations, and daily expenses remain constant, even as income disappears. Observers warn that this structural change in the workforce could have long-term social consequences. A generation of young people sidelined from the job market, risks falling into economic stagnation, disillusionment, and in some cases extreme responses born of desperation. The economic stress does not only affect individuals, it reverberates through families and communities, weakening social stability. Workers who remain employed are not immune to the pain. Some report that the cost of their social insurance is being deducted directly from their paychecks, drastically reducing their take-home income. For low-wage earners, the cut can be so steep that the job no longer makes financial sense. A number of employees have already decided to quit, preferring to lie flat at home rather than work for what they describe as unsustainable pay. The discontent is spreading beyond blue-collar sectors. Even professionals such as trainee lawyers are finding themselves in situations where their salaries shrink to almost nothing, after deductions leaving them reliant on family support to make ends meet. As the September deadline approaches, the sense of crisis is deepening. What was intended as a policy to strengthen the social safety net is in practice forcing small business owners into survival mode and displacing younger workers from the job market. The fallout is likely to ripple far beyond the restaurant industry, altering the structure of China's workforce and exacerbating social tensions at a time when economic resilience is already under strain. China's factories slash shifts and cut wages as trade. War fears deepen deflation. Despite ongoing negotiations between Washington and Beijing, uncertainty and pessimism surrounding the trade war are prompting many Chinese export manufacturers to scale back operations and reduce wages in order to stay competitive against domestic rivals. Economists warn that this wave of underemployment is worsening China's deflationary pressures and threatens to further drag down economic growth. A Reuters survey of business owners, recruitment agents, and unemployed job seekers paints a consistent picture. Factories across China are cutting production shifts and slashing pay, driven by expectations of higher U.S. tariffs and severe overcapacity. In Foshan, businessman Mike Chai has been forced to divert goods once destined for U.S. customers to Australia, undercutting long-standing relationships there. To keep his cabinetry business afloat, he has shortened workers' shifts, introduced unpaid leave, and is planning a 30% reduction in wage costs. Practices, he says, are now widespread. Even so, these measures only allow his company to break even. Other manufacturers are increasingly relying on temporary labor hiring only when orders come in and releasing workers once demand drops. Dave Fong, who owns 3 factories in southern China, recently laid off 30 full-time employees, replacing them with short-term hires paid by the day or hour, avoiding pension and insurance costs. He attributes the weak market both to falling domestic consumption and the trade war, especially with the United States. The labor market is showing the strain. According to Wuhan-based recruiter Chen Chuyan, temporary wages have fallen from 16 yuan an hour last year to 14 yuan, yet job seekers still queue daily for limited openings. For many of the unemployed, ranging from rural migrant workers to university graduates with degrees in digital marketing, finding a job is difficult, and wages offered are often too low to cover living expenses. Some employers reportedly deduct various fees from pay, such as management housing and cleaning charges, further eroding incomes. Economists note that shrinking work hours and unpaid leave don't show up in official unemployment data, masking the true extent of labor market weakness. Alicia Garcia Herrero, chief Asia-Pacific economist at Natixis, stresses that it is factory workers who bear the brunt of China's cutthroat price competition. Lower wages sap consumer spending power, while unsold inventory forces factories to cut labor costs even further, a vicious cycle that deepens deflation and undermines any recovery momentum. Guangzhou traffic police seize electric bike without ID, leaving owner with no way to seek justice. In the morning of August 11, 2025, an incident in Guangzhou, Fujian province has stirred public outrage. Mr. Xiao, a local resident, was on his way to work riding his electric bike when he stopped at a traffic light on Yanping Avenue in Beijing town. Without warning, several uniformed men appeared, took his keys, and pushed the bike away. When he demanded to see their identification, they refused to present any documents or provide a seizure notice. Speaking the next day, Xiao said the men offered no explanation for what law he had supposedly broken. Without proof of their department or authority, he said it was impossible to tell if they were genuine traffic officers or simply acting like bandits. His attempt to file a police report by calling 110 yielded no response, leaving him unsure of whom he could even lodge a formal complaint against. This incident comes against a broader backdrop of economic decline in China, where local governments facing shrinking revenues have turned increasingly to fines as a source of income. Xiao described how, in recent years, instead of alleviating people's hardships, authorities have intensified enforcement crackdowns that feel more like revenue collection than genuine law enforcement. Electric bikes purchased in the past did not require license plates, but under newer rules, newly bought e-bikes must be registered, and riders are required to hold driving permits. Xiao said officers now routinely stop unlicensed bikes, handing out fines of around 500 yuan each time, only to repeat the process when they encounter the same riders again. He also alleged that traffic police sometimes go directly to electric bike dealerships to inspect vehicles, effectively crippling business for shop owners. In his words, it's just robbery. They say you're in violation if they want you to be. They say you're not if they choose not to. Xiao drew parallels to other recent publicized clashes between citizens and local authorities, warning that incidents like these will only become more frequent as ordinary people, feeling increasingly squeezed and with no way out, are pushed toward open resistance. Evergrande's final countdown. Delisting. Set for August 25th. After 4 turbulent years, China Evergrande Group is reaching the end of its long corporate saga. On the evening of August 12th, the company announced it will be delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Its final trading day will be August 22nd, with the official removal taking effect at 9 a.m. on August 25th. The announcement confirmed that Evergrande had failed to meet any of the resumption requirements set by the exchange. Trading in its shares had been suspended for an extended period, and the company was unable to restore activity by the July 28th deadline. Evergrande also stated that it would not seek a review of the delisting decision. The path to this outcome traces back to January 2024, when the Hong Kong High Court issued a liquidation order against the developer, triggering yet another trading halt. Court-appointed liquidators from Alvarez and Marsal, Edward Simon Middleton, and Huang Yongxi took control, initiating asset recovery efforts. While some progress was made in reclaiming resources, the restructuring of Evergrande's offshore debt made no substantial headway. Once a real estate giant built on aggressive leverage, Evergrande had at its peak a market capitalization of $400 billion. Its founder, Xu Jiayin, topped the 2017 Huron Rich List with personal wealth of 290 billion yuan. But the liquidity crisis that erupted in 2021 sent its share price into freefall. By the time trading was halted in January 2024, the stock was worth only HK with a market capitalization of HK 2.152 billion. In March this year, the liquidators expanded their actions by filing lawsuits in the Hong Kong High Court against Xu Jiayin, his ex-wife Ding Yumei, former CEO Xia Haijun, and several affiliated companies. The claims allege breaches of duty in the group's 2018 to 2020 audited financial statements and 2019 to 2021 unaudited interim results, seeking to recover around $6 billion in dividends and compensation. The court has ordered a freeze on roughly $60 billion of their global assets. Evergrande had once sought to diversify far beyond real estate, venturing into football, bottled water, tourism, health, and agriculture. In 2016, it rebranded as China Evergrande Group in an attempt to build a cross-sector empire. However, its plan to list on the mainland A-share market collapsed, and the company became mired in investment disputes and arbitration cases. With projects now halted and creditors in pursuit, the once sprawling conglomerate has crumbled. Back in November 2009, Xu Jiayin rang the opening bell in Hong Kong, full of confidence and ambition. 15 years later, Evergrande is buried under a mountain of debt, its assets in liquidation, and its name erased from the stock market, bringing the so-called universe's largest property developer to a definitive and symbolic end, and symbolic end, and symbolic end.